Welcome to the Passive Mobile Home Park Investing Podcast with your host, Andrew Keel. This is the podcast where you can get the education you need to invest 100% passively in the highly profitable niche of mobile home parks.
Welcome to the Passive Mobile Home Park Investing Podcast. This is your host, Andrew Keel. And today we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to discuss how you can make $1 million buying a mobile home park. That's right, $1 million. But first, this show lives and breathes on reviews. If you have an extra second or two to leave this show a 5-star review, it would mean the absolute world to me. So thanks for taking that time. All right, let's dive in. The simple math to making $1 million buying a mobile home park looks like this. You can buy an 80-space mobile home park in a good market, raise rents $30 per year for 3 years, and you make $1 million. So that's the simple version of this. And I got this equation from a recent Facebook post from CRE University, which is a Frank and Dave group, something that they put out. And I saw this, and I was like, wow, that seems so simple, right? And I wanted to do the math and share it with you all to kind of go through it and explain it and talk about what could go wrong with that, right? And what could go right, and kind of the realistic view of that. But in theory, the simplest version would be, hey, you can buy an 80-space mobile home park in a good market, raise rents $30 a year for 3 years, and make $1 million. So let's dive in. So I want to talk about what a good market is. I think that a good market, from my time owning, over 40 mobile home parks at this point, median home price has a large correlation to housing and to just the economy and to jobs in the area and so forth. So I think a good market has a median home price over $200,000. And the way that I check this, I can actually share my screen with you all for those watching on video and on YouTube. But on YouTube, you can check this out. Typically, you could type in, I like to do everything by zip code. I think it's much more local, and you'll get, because there's different parts of town, right? If you're looking at Charlotte, and you're looking at zip codes, you're going to get, a drastically different median home price based on zip code. So what I'll do is I will go to Zillow, or I'll just go to Google really and type in, 28117 median home price, and then Zillow. And it'll pop up this little housing market, page, and you can find like, oh, right here, the median home price is, insane, over $600,000. You can type in other ones like Oviedo, Florida, and see, again, super high. So I just think by zip code's a good way to look at this, and Zillow has very recent statistics on this, and this is updated constantly. So that's one thing that I think a good market, is correlated with, is median home price over 200,000. Another thing is poverty rate. So I will go the same way on every deal. And by the way, like every new deal that I'm looking at, I do these exact steps. Like these are my first things that I'm doing when we get a deal that's in play, not even under contract yet. It's in play. I'm going to look up these statistics. So if we type in the zip code 28117, Mooresville, North Carolina, you can just hit Command F, type in poverty, and you'll see residents with income below the poverty level in 2022. This zip code only has 3.7. Really good area. Obviously, it's less than the whole state of North Carolina, but that's something that I think should be under, in the zip code, should be under 15%, or that's a red flag, right? Like there's a park we're looking at right now in Amarillo, Texas, and it's like 23.7% poverty rate. So it's quite a bit higher than I would like to see. There's some other things about the deal. So that's just a red flag that I'm kind of taking a look at, but there's other factors that make it a good deal. So that's poverty rate. I think having a low poverty rate, or having a poverty rate under 15%, makes it a good market. Population growing, not shrinking. This is pretty important, because we've even noticed on some of our wholesale deals, if we pass on a deal, if it's a shrinking market, it actually will people won't be as interested, and banks and otherwise will not be interested if you're in a shrinking market. So easiest way, you can go to best places, come down to people stats. Again, I'm doing everything by zip code. Go down to people stats, scroll down here, and they generally will have a 2010 population and a 2020 population. And you just want to make sure the 2020 is higher than the 2010. Pretty straightforward to show consistent growth, over that time period. Some markets will have more than others. Some will be, 1 or 2%. Others will be much more. So just keep an eye on that. Diverse employment is another big one. And what I'll do here is I'll go to Google. I'll type in top employers in the county, top employers. And then typically a site like this will show up, like an economic development or a chamber of commerce site will show up. And then you can click on like the top 25 employers and it'll show you who they are. And then what I'm really looking for is just numbers, right? Like how many people are employed at that company. And I'll kind of dig into the company. What do they do? And I just want to make sure it's not a one horse town. We bought a park and out in the Midwest, and it was just a one horse town. They had like a meat packing plant. And luckily that meat packing plant, while we owned it, didn't have like any layoffs or anything like that. But during COVID, it was like this big deal because there was, a lot of regulation around the food industry and things like that. So it just caused a lot of riffraff. So you want to be careful that, hey, if they stop hiring or they stop growing or they shut down that plant, that your mobile home park's not going to go dead. So these are just ways to kind of check out a good market. And another way, a real simple version is, hey, what are market lot rents? Are market lot rents above $450 a month? That is generally a good market because I think that does, correlate to median home price, in my opinion. So let's look at the math real quick. In order to buy an 80 space mobile home park in today's market, interest rates are, 7.5%, 8% at local banks. But let me go to this tab real quick. Okay, perfect. Much better. So this is a little spreadsheet that I put together that talks about, it just basically looks at, buying an 80 space mobile home park and, what you're going to pay. I think in today's market for that type of stabilized asset, you're going to pay a 7 cap. Things have gotten as low as a 5 cap back in like 2021 and 2019, things were really hot. So I think you're going to be around a 7 cap. And the bank terms you're going to get for something like this right now is around 70% LTV, 7.5% interest rate, 20-year amortization, and a 5-year balloon. That's just through like a local credit union type of bank. But what I want to show you here, I'll zoom in a little bit so it's a little bit more straightforward. What I want to show you here is, hey, we got 80 spaces, $450 lot rent at a 7 cap, assuming 35% expenses, assume they already bill back, and it's public water and sewer, which is typical for parks in our current portfolio. Your estimated NOI would be this, right? Per year, the net operating income would be $280,800. And then if we take that at a 7 cap, right here, that number is $4,011,429. So let's say you paid that for this mobile home park, 80 lots, 450 lot rent, in the Charlotte MSA, which I think would be a pretty good buy. And then, you raise rents $30 a year for 3 years, which is only 5 to 6% annual rent bumps. Your estimated NOI year one would be $309,600. And already at the end of year one, the value of that mobile home park would have gone up over $400,000. The value at a 7 cap, the same 7 cap that you bought at, would be $4,422,857. End of year two, again, assuming just full occupancy, you kept it full, all tenant owned homes, 450 lot rent, and you just raised it $30 again in year two, the NOI goes up to 338,400. The estimated value at a 7 cap is 4.8 million and some change. And then at the end of year three, just raising rents $30 again, end of year three, your NOI goes from when you bought it was 280,800 to now end of year three, it's 367,200, which makes the value, the estimated value, if you were to sell it at the same 7 cap you bought it at, the estimated value would be $5,245,714. So right there, same cap rate you bought it at, just annual rent increases of $30 for 3 years would make you over $1 million because that is, you sell it at this price. Obviously, you're going to have some, there's other considerations like capital gains taxes and commission if you included a broker or so forth. But, dollar for dollar here, you can see where that $1 million was added in value. Now, here's the crazy thing. Right now, interest rates are higher. There's talks of them, reducing those. It's, July 26th as I'm recording this. But so let's just say cap rates condense, interest rates go down over the next year or two, and cap rates condense for mobile home parks down to a 6 cap. So you bought that mobile home park for just over $4 million, kept it the same, kept all 80 lots occupied, and lot rents started at 450, and you raised rents $30 a year for 3 years, and cap rates condensed on you, which really you don't have to do anything, right? Like cap rates just went down because of the market and interest rates. Now that $1 million can be added literally in 1 year, right? Because you had that cap rate compression, which again, you should never bet on this, right? This is like totally like hypothetical speaking, like this could happen, it could not. But if it does, you can see where value can go up drastically. And at the end of year 3, just doing $30 per year increases, where it'd be $30 a month increase in someone's lot rent. By the end of year 3, the value would be over $6 million for something you paid $4 million for, 3 years earlier. If the cap rates condense, you bought it at a 7 cap, you sell it at a 6 cap, you didn't use a broker to sell it, and you just raised rents $30 per year for 3 years. So pretty cool. I wanted to compound this and see what it would do in 10 years. If you bought something in a good market, you raised rents 5 to 6% per year, just $30 per year for 10 years. At the end, and let's just say you bought it at a 7 cap and you sold it at a 7 cap 10 years later, the NOI at the end of 10 years would be approximately $568,800. The value of the park would be $8,125,714. You bought it for $4,011,000 and you held onto it for 10 years, just raising rents $30 per year, and you kept it full. All 80 lots are occupied. You kept the expenses around 35%. And literally at the end of year 10, the value could be over $8 million. So literally double the value of the asset. And with the leverage you would have from the financing, I mean, you can see where that would just, create a lot of value. And if again, interest rates condense to a 6 cap and you bought it at a 7 cap, the value would be over $9 million for that asset that you paid just over 4. So it was a pretty cool exercise. I was talking with my business partner, like we're looking at selling some assets, and it's, it's really interesting because there's a lot of, in some of our parks, there's a lot of turnover, and we're investing a lot of the cash flow into CapEx to fill those vacant lots because people pulled their homes out or they need to be rehabbed or so forth. So we're investing a lot of the cash flow into them to keep them full. And, even if we do that and keep those 80 lots full, and just keep up with the rent increases, for 10 years, it's still worth it, right? To sell at the end of 10 years, even if the cash flow wasn't great that entire hold period because of that appreciation. But this is something that's, not planned on in the forefront. It's just kind of like, it's nice to review and kind of remind yourself, hey, just keep occupancy high and keep up with your annual rent increases and operate it well. And, the value potential is there, is there. So that's pretty cool. Let's see. What else did I have in my notes here that I wanted to talk about? Yeah. So we talked about if interest rates go down, talked about the 10-year hold period. It doesn't account for like submetering. If you buy a park, this is just raising rents $30 per year, which there's no like additional expenses. Your expenses are mostly fixed. That rent increase goes straight to NOI. So, if you're submetering water sewer, that generally can take expenses from say 45% of gross revenue down to 35%. So if you buy a park and you add that, that's a lot of value that you can add to something. Doesn't count for any infill on those 80 lots, assumes that you bought them completely full. So lots of additional value add to be had in mobile home parks. It definitely takes elbow grease. That's one thing I put on my notes here is like, this isn't easy. This is something that like to keep those 80 lots occupied is a full-time job, and to keep it managed at a high level to make sure it doesn't have violations and refrigerators showing up in people's front yards and things like that. You gotta be hands-on with these things. But I just think the value add potential is more reliable and easier to see versus other asset classes like self-storage, for example. And we got into self-storage, bought 11 facilities. We've sold several of them. We're down to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5 left. And in storage, the value add is, building more square footage, which is hard to do and, risky and capital intensive. Or you can raise rents to market and hope people don't move out, but it's month to month leases. And this whole revenue management thing is, very market dependent. That's one thing we learned is like, you really got to buy in good markets. The storage facilities we bought in good markets did well. The ones we bought in more tertiary markets have struggled. There's more storage coming online, so that additional supply was some headwinds we faced. But I think raising rents and thinking people won't move out, is not true. Like 10% of our tenants move out every month, and then we have to refill that 10% every month. So it's an ongoing operational intensive business, just like mobile home parks. But yeah, I think that's kind of the explanation I wanted to give you, though, just is the value add in mobile home parks is very easy to see. It's harder to predict value add in other asset classes. The mobile home park residents are stickier and can withstand the 5 to 6% annual rent increases better than other asset classes can. Because at the end of the day, storage is just a metal box, right? That they can go pull their stuff out of and be out of in a day. Where a mobile home, block leveled tie down, is much harder to do that. And also, lot rents are still stupid cheap across the country. They're way under market because of the fragmented ownership. A lot of mom and pops own these. So, wrapping up this quick, podcast. In conclusion, mobile home parks can rock as an investment vehicle and as a supplier of affordable housing, which is desperately needed in most, if not all, areas of the U.S. where we invest in mobile home parks. Making $1 million is possible, but definitely not guaranteed. I should put an asterisk next to that. It's not guaranteed. Stuff can and will go wrong, including turnover on occupied lots. Those have a large appetite for CapEx funds and can eat up your cash flow. But you got to keep those 80 lots occupied, right? That doesn't say, oh, you can do this and then let occupancy slip down to only having 70 occupied, like many of the parks we buy. You got to keep those 80 lots full because the value of an occupied lot is so tremendous. It's so tremendous. The value of an occupied lot, if you look at it real quick, I'll share my screen again for those watching on YouTube. But the value of an occupied lot at $450 per month at a 7 cap, if you do the math here, which is basically you take 450 times 12 times 0.65, take away 35% expenses, and then divide that by a 7 cap. So the value of one occupied lot is $50,143 if lot rent's $450. So if you spend, $25K to bring a home in and get it set up, and then you sell that home for less than that, it's still a win as the park owner, and I put it in here. If you spend $40K to bring a home in and you sell the home for $30K, on paper, you lose $10K, right? Because you sold that home for less than you have in it. But it still makes sense because you got $30K back and you added $50,000 of value to your park for $10,000, net, because you spent 40, you got 30 back out of it. You're $10,000 in and you added 50,000 to the asset value. So it still makes sense. And that component makes mobile home parks really just different and attractive and unique, where a lot of other asset classes don't have that luxury of those homes, and of the value of the home is really not the value, right? The value is the lot rent and that recurring income from that. So back to my conclusion here, tenant owned homes, people will abandon those trailers and you have to come in and rehab them and spend money to get those titles. Home move outs. We've had some wholesalers come into a park we own in Indiana, in Hudson, Indiana, and buy the mobile homes and then hold us hostage and say, hey, we're moving this out, or you can buy it, back from us for $10,000. And, we have to, reinvest that money to keep occupancy high. So there's things like that can eat up the cash flow. But again, keeping it full, doing those $30 per year for 3-year increases can be super valuable. Along with, obviously, you need to fix the deferred maintenance, tree trimming, road work, make it safe, utility repairs to fix, the property's condition and make sure that, again, you got to keep occupancy high, you got to keep the water working, the sewer working, and so forth. And that stuff is, imperative and can eat up a lot of money and ruin a budget. So this is all why proper due diligence before making a purchase of a mobile home park is super, super, super important. And also why investing with experienced mobile home park investor operators can, help you avoid costly mistakes, like buying a park that needs all the water lines replaced or all the sewer lines replaced, or buying a park with bad electrical infrastructure or with small lots that can't fit homes. And you thought you were going to infill all these homes, but you can't infill on them because the homes or the lots are so small. So a lot of things to consider. But thank you so much for listening to this episode and watching. If you're watching on YouTube, this episode was on how to make $1 million buying a mobile home park. Thanks so much for tuning in. Have a great day.
Would you like to see mobile home park value add projects in progress? If so, follow us on Instagram at Passive MHP Investing for photos and awesome videos from our recent mobile home park acquisitions. Once again, that's at Passive MHP Investing on Instagram. See you there.